Thank you for being alive and sending the notes late.
Thank you for joining the Escape With Me Book Club. Escape with me, Sam Reiner.
And me, Tim Bergman.
Into our most recent read. Come with us as we evade reality and go into detail about a new book. We'll be covering the book from beginning to end, so there will be spoilers. Today we are going to Fantasy Kingdom. Bellamontagne is my best guess. I'm just gonna call it Belle. And Corvinia, published May 14th, 2024. I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons is the most recent book by fantasy titan Peter S. Beagle. Best known for his book and movie The Last Unicorn, which was originally published in 1968. Does this author still have what it takes after 60 years? Or has modern day left him behind? So we found out about this book when we were doing The Last Unicorn episode. I was looking up stuff for him and we saw that he had a recent, that year, published book, which is crazy. Because like I said, Last Unicorn came out 60 years ago. How old is this man?
Let's go ahead and check his Wikipedia page.
He is 85 years old.
Doesn't look a day of it. Well, looks a day of it.
Depends what picture you're looking at. But I was a little confused because it's like 275 pages and I was like, oh, this is a children's book. But then it was in the adult section and I was like, oh. And then I read the book and I was like, oh, it's an adult book. It's just short.
Yeah.
So it is age level adult because content warning, language, death of a parent mentioned, animal cruelty and death, genocide by fire, death of children, graphic violence, gore, blood, abuse, physical, child abuse, physical, both of those mentioned, but constantly. This dude is constantly talking about people beating other people. My goodness. Kidnapping and murder.
Yeah, this is a wild ride, folks. And you don't really get that from a title like I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons.
I love the title so much. To just judge a book by its cover, I had no idea what to expect. All I had known from this man is The Last Unicorn, and he's written other books that I did not know about or have read. But yeah, so that's all I had. I was like, so we're doing The Last Unicorn, but dragons.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that haven't gotten into the Beagle books, because he has a whole other series.
Oh yeah, he has several.
Yeah, and I'm reading Overneath right now, and it's pretty good. But I do enjoy the title more in retrospect, because so many titles of books these days are either one word or a blank of blank and blank.
Yeah, and it's not even authors, it's publishers.
I wonder what this would have been. A story of dragons and death or something like that.
A story of fire and dragons.
Yeah, there you go.
With Holly Black font. But I do like the title a lot. But that is what I thought. And I'm not entirely wrong. We kind of have a princess and a hero prince, but then we got this third dude who's not quite Schmeagle. No, that's not his name. What is his name? Not quite like the wizard dude.
Are you talking about Gandalf?
No, I'm talking about The Last Unicorn.
Oh, Schmendrick.
Schmendrick, thank you.
You have the unicorn, you have Schmendrick, and you have my beloved Molly Grew.
And what's his face that I'd always forget his name. Oh no, even after I read it, I was like, what is that guy's name? But the prince that didn't want to become a hero, but became a hero because beautiful woman.
Prince Lear.
Is it Prince Lear? Okay, well, yeah, that guy. So we kind of have those archetypes in it, except Schmendrick's the main character this time, and it's dragons.
It's not even Schmendrick's the main character, because Schmendrick is this incompetent fool, and he has power within him, whereas old Robert here, he's good at everything.
He is.
He has massive chosen one energy.
Except he's a reluctant hero, and we'll get to it in a minute, but that went on a little bit longer than I wanted to tolerate. But yeah, I'm not terribly wrong. I'm not quite right, but I wasn't terribly wrong either. What did you think going in?
Going in, like you, like a lot of people probably, I expected this to have a lot of Last Unicorn influence, and maybe I was surprised that it didn't, but also kind of excited that he'd subverted a lot of it. But I also expected this to be as a dragon book. As a young kid, I used to read a lot of dragon books, you know, like Aragon and How to Train Your Dragon. I read so many of those books before the movies came out even. And so I was expecting a run-of-the-mill dragon tamer kind of book, and this subverted subverted a lot of that.
Yeah, I've seen a joke where all dragon books are either dragons have been around forever and we're best friends and da-da-da-da-da, or, oh my gosh, the dragons are back.
Yeah.
And this book was like, how about both?
Yeah.
Let's do both.
So yeah, I had those expectations and I was happy they were subverted, even if I didn't think this book was perfect.
I did see your 4-star.
Yeah, and that's because I couldn't put it at 3.5.
So many people are like, we need half stars.
Or at least 10 of them.
No, that's too many stars. But yeah, it starts off and I thought it was, oh no, the dragons are coming, because the prologue is kind of like, oh my goodness, what if the dragons are back? And then it goes to Robert and he has like 3 little dragons and he is a dragon exterminator and they're tiny and small and they can do chores and be adorable pets. And I was like, okay, maybe dragons are here. Maybe it's something else, because they just vaguely say the kings, capital K. And so I was like, well, maybe the kings is something else. It's not dragons. It is dragons. It's just big dragons.
And we're skipping over something with the main guy. His name is Robert, and we're going to be calling him Robert throughout the book. But why don't you give us the full name?
This is where my 2 years in Latin is going to come in handy. Gaius Aurelius Constantine sorry, that's too many letters in a row for my dyslexia. Heliogabalus Thrax.
And all of them Roman emperors.
Yes.
Although why you would name your kid Heliogabalus after the reputation that guy had is beyond me.
Well, here's the thing. I say fantasy, but it also kind of takes place in the real world. But it's like there's a fantasy world added, but they'll do stuff like they'll mention real places or they'll use German words or something. And so it's real, I swear. But
yeah, I'm so happy you mentioned that because it's one of the things I wanted to talk about.
Oh, interesting. I've just looked it up because it's been a hot minute. That was a nickname of the emperor. His actual name is Marcus Aurelius Antonius. And then he has the nickname Heliogabalus, which I'm still trying to look up what it means.
Yep. What I wanted to mention is Beagle does something very interesting in that he kind of puts his fantasy world on top of the real world.
Yes.
He doesn't separate them out entirely. He doesn't go through a whole alternate history. It just is what it is. And so he's saying like, yeah, there's Corvinia and there's dragons. And also look at this new shirt that I got from the coast of Spain. And so you're wondering, and there is no map, by the way. And so it's just so funny to me. And I love it. I love it in its own way in that it's just in the real world. He never tries to define it. He doesn't even bother.
Okay. I'm about to just be like, this is gobbledygook. Helio is sun. Okay. I can figure out the rest of this.
Are you trying the etymology of this name?
Yes. Okay, I might have dissected it wrong because, like I said, Helio is sun, but Gabalus is gallows, and sun gallows just doesn't sound right. But that's the best thing. Yeah, sun gallows. Well, considering what he's known for, that's not terribly surprising either. So, yes, we are in fantasy world, but we are in real world. So it's technically low fantasy because it's in the real world, which is weird to say, but I wouldn't even call it urban fantasy because it doesn't spill over into the real world. We never go into the real world. Technically, the real world spilling over into it. Whatever. It's fine. Robert hates his job. He also calls his mother by her first name, which is weird to me.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that, but yeah, he does.
Yeah, every time she's referenced, it's her first name. And I'm like, okay. To really quick get these two characters out of the way because they matter, but they don't matter. He has 2 friends. Ostwald is his kind of assistant, but I don't think he has enough work for him, so Oswald also does manual labor stuff. And then you have their friend Elfrida, who has a huge crush on Robert, which sucks because Oswald has a crush on her.
Yeah, we start off with this love triangle.
Yeah, and they do small things here and there, like Oswald's the reason Robert has to watch Reginald being presented at court, and then she delivers messages to him, and they direct people to their house and stuff. So they're doing stuff, but they're not important.
Yeah, they really are just these background characters
that keep getting POVs, and it's driving me nuts.
Yeah, my contention is with them later in the book, but we'll get there. Don't you worry, we'll get there.
The biggest thing thing that they do is at some point our trio, which is Robert, the princess, and the prince of Corvinia, they're kind of like a little trio. They run off to do something. And so she, who is obsessed with Robert, is like, I have to go. He needs me. And Oswald's like, no, he doesn't. And she's like, but he needs me. So she rents a donkey. They have a whole half-day argument about whether it's a donkey or a mule. And I was just so done with them. And then it's just Elfrida being like, I don't know why, but we need to go. And so several parts of chapters are just them bickering back and forth, and then it cuts, and then the trio does their thing, and then it's the last chapter of the book, and it's just briefly mentioned, oh, they found us in the woods and helped us get home. But they're in love now!
Yeah, I want to get there, but we got to get there first. I want to put this in its proper place. This is like pulling Jenga pieces for me. So Ostwald and Elfrida are these C-tier characters that just come in every now and again.
If that. It tricks you thinking that they're more important than they are because they keep getting narrator slots, but...
Yeah, I definitely thought Ostwald was going to be a bigger piece than he was.
Yeah.
Because he's still there in about the first third of the book. He's just right by Robert's side the whole time.
Yeah, and for having a bunch of, well, not even terribly too many, but I mean, for a 275-page book, he's got a lot of named characters, and most of them aren't important. For example, he has, that I can remember off the top of my head, 5 women with speaking roles, 5, 6, somewhere in there. This book does not pass the Bechdel test. Women don't talk to each other, except for when the princess is like, my mother, I am in love with the prince, but he is not in love with me. And she's like, well, don't you worry, my child. Here are my tips and tricks.
Learn how to be a good administrator.
How do we have so many women and we just never talk, except for that one time about boys? Oh well. Robert hates his job. It sucks. Whatever. Karis also kind of hates her job because she's really hot, and boys are like, oh my gosh, you're hot, I want to marry you. And then they show up, and then they're pretty suckish. Even the king, at one point, it was the funniest line. He was like, and the king looked upon them, and he thought that the quality of prince has really gone downhill since his days as a prince.
Yeah, there are a lot of really funny Beagleisms in the book, if you look for it.
He does a really good job of showing how lame these princes are. For most of them not even getting names, they just end up following them around and being useless and the worst. And you're just like, I kind of feel for Karis. They really are. Except I don't feel for Karis because a hot guy shows up and she's like, oh my gosh, I'm in love. We're gonna get married tomorrow. I'm exhausted already.
Yeah, so poor Reginald. Is this where we introduce him?
Poor Reginald hates his job and hates what he's doing.
So Reginald hates being a prince, and he's saddled with Mortmain, or Mortmain.
I said Mortmain, but that's because I thought it sounded cooler.
Yep, but Mortmain, who honestly is not that bad of a character. I liked him a lot more.
For this sneaky, manipulative guy, not really.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be the Jafar of the book.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to be the Chamberlain kind of sneaky.
Which the Chamberlain doesn't get a name, even though he appears more times than most of the other same characters. I know that he's small and portly, but he is only ever called Chamberlain. Even when he's talking to Mortmain and they're going at it like chess or whatever.
Yeah.
He's just Chamberlain. No name for you. We'll name 5 different gods and goddesses and won't explain at all what any of that is.
Yeah, that's another thing that really confused me is I love how he puts his fantasy world on top of things, but then some people name a lot of different gods and then others just say, oh God, help me. And it's like, wait a minute, how does religion work?
Which one?
Yeah.
This is a polytheism. You have to be specific.
Yeah, I do love it. It's also very confusing.
Yeah, because sometimes they use the god's name as like a curse.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they actually talk about worshiping them. And the mom's like, oh, this one goddess gave you the soul of a hero and the heart of a dragon. And you're like,
yeah, spoilers, everyone.
Is that something she can do? Is she a dragon goddess? Is she the goddess of the home? Childbirth? Nothing? Okay.
Oh my goodness.
But that's me and my real world obsession with mythology aside.
Don't get her started on Egypt.
Or any of them, honestly.
Yeah, but poor Reginald. Reginald and Mortmain are riding through the forest doing their knight errantry.
And he sees a cute girl riding and he's like, hey. And he looks down.
Oh, she's not even riding.
She's trying to learn to read and she's doing it by writing stuff from this old poem and whatever.
Yeah, not riding. I love the English language.
And he was picking wildflowers for the queen, but sees her and is like, hey, you seem cool. Here are flowers. And then she falls apart completely, which I'm like, I'm exhausted. This is accurate to life, but man, I went through my teenage years. I'm done.
Yeah, you went over it. For me, I got the major Last Unicorn flashbacks, where it's like it's Princess Lear in reverse.
Yes, a little bit, yeah. Ugh.
Anyway.
But yeah, I totally, with Mortmain, Reginald's there, and she's obsessed with him, and it's like, oh my gosh, we will be married in the morning. But he doesn't propose, he's just kind of hanging out or whatever, and he gets presented to court, and the king is super rude in his introduction.
Yeah, because the king hates Reginald's dad.
Because he's the worst. And for such build-up to that character, he was kind of a nothing burger a little bit. He had like 2 good lines, and then he gets turned into a throne.
He actually had some really good character development in like all of 20 pages.
And then they don't change him back from a throne. Robert's like, oh, we need to go do the thing. And Reginald's like, but do we?
No, I'm gonna go get drunk. At the end of the book, he really just says, yeah, I'm just gonna go get drunk for a bit.
Yeah, he's like, I'm gonna adventure a little bit more, maybe drink a little, or a lot. Then we can turn him back from a chair.
Yeah, we are getting way ahead of ourselves. Everybody in the audience is like, what do you mean he's a throne?
There's spoiler warnings for a reason. But yes.
Yep. But, oh, and we forgot to mention why Robert is there at all.
Oh, yeah. Karis runs into the castle and is like, I hate everything. Everything's awful. We need to redo it all right now. And the king's like, so this thing called time exists?
Yeah.
We need time. She's like, well, at least need to get rid of all the dragons. Because they're kind of rats. They bury in the wall.
Yeah, the dragons are like fantasy vermin.
Yeah, they bury into the wall and sometimes they'll like bite you and spit fire at you or poison.
Yeah, so that's why the whole title is I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons, is that whole deal with, oh, they're in the walls and they're eating it up like rats and termites. And by the way, Robert hates his job.
Yes.
He hates it.
So much. And he keeps adopting the dragons because if you go to the Dragon Mark, they basically skin them. And everything you would imagine from pig slaughter, cow slaughter, anything like that. That's the kind of the vibes of the Dragon Mark.
Yeah, it's like a wet market. If you ever want to look up what those are, be careful with your eyes.
And so he's there hanging out, sees the Reginald thing.
And by the way, he's on like no hours of sleep. He's going for about 36 hours awake.
Yeah, Robert doesn't get to go to sleep until like 2 days.
Halfway through the book, yeah.
And Karis starts off being like, oh my gosh, you're so tired. You should definitely get some rest. And he's like, yeah, we got about 2 walls left. He's like, 2 walls left? Well, you better get at it.
Yeah.
I'll send you food, but clear the dragons. Also, there's this really awkward moment where she's like, oh my gosh, ha ha ha, that was so funny. That one time when I was 9 and you had hold of a dragon and it came into my room and almost tossed you out the window. That was so funny. My dad and I laughed about it even though I screamed at you. And Robert's like, yeah, I got beat for that. Thanks.
Yeah, every now and again. He doesn't do it very often, but it does come up several times. Robert's like, yeah, my dad beat me.
Yeah, and you're like, wow, I guess they're like old, whatever. No, at the end of the book, he's like, oh yeah, she hasn't been this mad with me since dad came home drunk and beat her. And then I did something childish as retribution, and then she got mad at me. And I was just like, everyone is, granted, real life, everyone in this book is extolling how good this man is at his job. And then you find out, wow, he's a horrible person.
Yeah, but this is partially done just so to show that Robert and Cerise, the princess, go back since they were 9 years old.
They've known of each other.
Yeah, they've had about 10 years of interaction.
They're not friends. They're not talking to each other. He definitely hasn't seen her in over 4 years, which is how long the dad's been dead.
Yeah, and she used to have nicknames for him. She used to tease him.
In like a mean way, though. She called him Smelliest. Like, that's not a nickname. Anyway, Karis doesn't really come off as great through like 2/3 of the book. He has a redemption-ish, but not in the beginning. But yeah, Mortmain, after the whole being super rude to Reginald to his face and to the court, and Karis literally dying, Mortmain's there and he's looking suspicious, and I was like, this man is here. He's gonna kill the king. He's gonna do something to sabotage them so Kreegi can take over the land. You know, something? He does not, ever.
He does not. He plays chess with the unnamed Chamberlain.
And his main goal here is Kreegi is like, my son is useless and he's my only son, so he can't be useless. So go on an adventure and be a hero. And so that is Mortmain's only job here. He's like, all I care about is making him a hero. So he has to do the most convoluted thing possible.
And send the boy on a dragon quest.
But we can't just send him on a dragon's quest. We need to get an audience with the king in front of everyone else and be like, oh my goodness, I would totally propose to your daughter, but I'm not a hero yet. And until I'm a hero, I'm not worthy of her. Even though I definitely don't want to get married to her. Thank you.
Yep.
And he has to go through all of that rigmarole, like a week or two, to say, hey, got any dragons?
Yep, and that whole time, Cerise is hanging on his arm and just listening to him. She is head over heels the whole time. And he's just like, yeah, I wrote this poem. It's pretty neat, I guess. Look at the flowers, huh?
That's pretty cool. The sun kind of sets in color.
Yep. Oh, and by the way, I want to get this out of the way first. Did you see the same problem I see in that Cerise is not taught to read? She's completely illiterate.
I am stuck on it. Okay, here's the thing. I don't understand the world building here. Boys are sent to jobs and girls are sent to lessons.
Thank you. I was so confused.
But what do the women do with that education? You don't meet an educated woman, and plenty of men know how to read and write.
And it doesn't extend to the royalty? How many asterisks are at the end of this women can read nonsense?
Yeah, so Robert learns to read because his sisters teach him, and I guess the mom knows how to read, but she's just not just a housewife, but she is a housewife, which does not require literacy. Why are they being educated? What are they being educated for? It's not even to be like, oh, to teach the kids. Mom doesn't teach the boys to read, or the girls. They get sent to why? The world building, it felt like it was just to subvert the trope, but didn't actually get put into the world. That's not a part of the character of the world. But yes, Harris doesn't know how to read. And I got really confused with that because supposedly they make treaties and laws and stuff. So how are you supposed to read and write and do that? But on top of that, okay, fine, Karis doesn't read. We'll just go back to typical sexism because once again, in the world, the king makes all the decisions. The king is the one ruling. The queen is over the house. Why are they being educated? Anyway, Reginald also cannot read or write. He is about to be a king.
Yeah, Mortmain basically says all royals are illiterate.
Yeah, and Karis is like, oh yeah, he'll understand me because he can't read or write later. And you see his writing later and it's horrible. And how is this a man supposed to have treaties and laws and whatever? But one last thing, all royalty, right? Illiterate, all royalty, right?
Right.
Why does her dad have a library? She stole the poem from her dad's library.
I can't believe I read past that.
What is this?
Are you understanding my 3.5 a little bit better now?
He wants to subvert tropes in the moment and to be clever and to be smart. And I'm like, that's fine. I love it. That's a fun idea. Subvert the things. The peasants are educated. The royalty aren't. But he doesn't take it into the world. He doesn't build it into it. And yeah, it's so frustrating when it's like, why are we educating women? Also, in one day, Robert takes 7,298 dragons to the Dragon Mart. Apparently, a year's worth of dragons. You're gonna wreck the economy!
But people are just waiting at the dragon market with full pockets, full of gold, nothing to do.
Mansa Musa did this once!
Man, they could finally refurbish the castle just like Cerise is wanting.
And then he has it in a pack of gold in his shirt, and I'm just like, that's not enough gold, sir. For 7,298 dragons. It takes 28 carts
Sneaky bag of holding.
to get all of them there. And that is including dragons that are like the size of house cats. Not really many that much bigger, and some as small as your pinky. 28 carts.
And all categorized by size and species and all that.
It took him 3 days. to sort them, but he sells them in like a couple hours, like a day, not even. He can still walk around the mart, and he just has like a pack full of gold.
It's like a Texas cattle baron.
Can you imagine suddenly having, what's a year's salary that I wish everyone had? $60,000 minimum. Just suddenly having $60,000 just handed to you right now. Whatever your yearly paycheck is right now. That would be insane.
Yeah, and there's no paper money back then, folks.
It's gold. Gold is heavy.
Oh man, I'm so happy we went on this tangent. We haven't even gotten outside of the city yet.
Don't mind me. Of course I'm going to bring up the economy.
Oh man.
I had to take those classes. I will bring it up every chance I get, but yes.
We'll need to add that to the bingo sheet. So we're going to get back onto it, folks. We're going to get back onto it.
At the Dragon Mart, Mortmain just shows up and is like, hey, kid.
And then he buys a fake knife just to prove that he could.
Yeah, he explains why he did it, and it didn't make sense. At least not to me. But he's like, hey, kid, you're good with dragons. You should help me with big dragons, and I will give you your heart's desire. And it's one of those moments, I feel like I really wish we had his POV. I think it would be funny, because he's probably like, I will give you your heart's desire, whatever that is. And then he's like, I want to be a valet. And Mortmain's just like, well, that was easier than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
He's like, yes, I will take you under my wing and I will teach you how to valet. Except he gives him 2 lessons and then is like, you don't really want to be a valet.
Yeah, Mortmain was probably going through all of how much money do I have that I can give this kid? What connections do I have? And then the kid's just like, I want to be like you. And he's like, huh.
I can do that.
Yeah, just...
He's expecting, oh, I want all this gold. I want a position of power. I want to marry the princess. And then it's just like, I want to be a servant, but a different servant than I am now.
Yeah, because my dad forced me to take this job and he beat me and my mother.
I no longer want to be an entrepreneur in the family business. I would like to be a servant. Thank you.
I would like to join the service economy.
I don't even care if it's a good prince. Just any prince will do. And it's just like the bar is so low.
Mortmain is really into limbo these days.
After dealing with Reginald and Creedy and even the Chamberlain and all the royalty, I bet he's just like, huh, well, that was easier than I was expecting.
Yep.
Dang it, why did I buy this fake knife?
So for the next good bit, Robert teaches Reginald how to fight dragons.
Robert gives him tips and tricks, and then Mortmain takes him out in the middle of nowhere and makes him attack hay bales, except he's on horseback. But apparently Reginald sucks at that and is getting beat up every day. And Karis is upset because she's like, oh no, he's leaving earlier and earlier in the morning and coming later and later. And every time we do talk, it's lame. Even Karis is getting the clue that he's not that into her. And that's about when the mom's like, hey, you should do charity work. That'll really show him. And she's like, oh, okay. And she does it. And she's like, I hate this. And I'm like, well, that's just great. The royalty being like, I hate helping people.
Well, it's kind of like a Tom Sawyer's Fence kind of deal.
So once again, Reginald does the whole, oh, I would totally marry her, except I'm not a hero. Can you please help me become a hero? And then the king is like, oh my goodness, maybe he does want to marry my daughter. He seems kind of cool now, almost hero-ish. There's these big dragons, big green dragons in the mountains. And it's like, oh, go kill one of those. And Mortmain's like, see, one dragon, in, out, we're done. It'll be easy. Robert says you got it. I say you got it. Let's do this. And the queen is like, Karis, you should be in charge of this so you can show him that you're really good at organizing his life and he'll realize that he can't live without you.
Ladies, if you want a man to fall for you, do his taxes.
It was so freaking sad in a way to be like, oh, you need to run his life. He's gonna be king. And anyway, he's totally helpless, but she's over the top. So what Robert thought was going to be himself, Mortmain, and Reginald going into the mountains, taking down a dragon together, and then coming back ends up being like 100 people.
Yeah, it's a carnival on wheels.
There's men-at-arms, but there's also cooks, and they send a jester, and a bunch of the princes go, which, by the way, was a little bit funny when the king had to go get Robert for the extermination, because it's like, my daughter's throwing a fit, and I don't want to deal with that, so here, let's just do the thing. And like 5 princes went with him. They're just following around at this point, but they're like, yeah, we're gonna go, and then hopefully Reginald will suck, and then I can be a hero, and then it's just like, guys, take a hint. She's just not that into you.
Yeah, your frilly white tights, which are mentioned more than once, do not impress her.
Go home. Anyway.
So they go through a couple towns, and everybody's like, wow, look at all that.
It's great. They're excited. It's a festival field.
They're singing.
It's like 3 days to the mountains, and so
kind of bogged down.
they get a little bogged down. There's some rain and stuff, and they're like, okay, well, we'll go to the next village tomorrow, not tonight. It's the last village on our thing. And they get there, and it's burned down, and I was like, oh, prologue village, because I knew as soon as we were in the prologue, and it was like, prologue village, and then it was Robert, and Robert was very clearly somewhere else. I'm like, that town's getting burned down, and it did.
And this is like the Mulan scene, where they're all singing it's like a girl worth fighting for.
Oh, that's a good example.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden the music stops. And by the way, in the Mulan movie, there are no musical numbers after that. And this is exactly like the book. They come across this burned village, and he just describes dead bodies, too.
Oh, yeah, no, straight up, because this is where I was like, I thought this was no, it's not a children's book. Yeah, dead bodies, charred, blob bodies, things.
Yeah, and children, too, just dead children.
Children, yeah. Oh, and there were small ones.
Yeah, crispy kids. There you go. Thank you, Peter S. Beagle.
Because I thought at first it was like, oh, everything's been burned down. It's like, okay, we'll keep it a little PG, but no, we're going to describe this. And then, of course, we're going to describe the three that were clearly trying to warn the rest. And I just want a vindication for Uska. Uska was the youngest of the three wise women in the prologue. And she was like, the kings are coming. The dragons are back. And the second oldest was like, nah, you're stupid. No one likes you. And then the oldest was like, we should pray. And I was just like, she's going to be right. And then she was right. I hope she is glaring at them in the afterworld.
And also, before we go too far into this, Cerise, this whole time, is doing a superb job at administration. I know we've been kind of knocking her about for saying, administration will get the guy's heart, but she's doing a bang-up job.
Well, no, I'm not knocking her about that. I'm like, that's horrible, Mom. Don't be like, yeah, just get the pathetic one that can't do anything and then run his life. Be basically his mother. That's what I got sad about. But Karis is doing a great job running a massive caravan. The problem is, Robert points out, we shouldn't have a massive caravan. And she's like, shut up. No one likes you anyway. I'm gonna get my man. And then they get attacked by dragons and everybody dies.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a bit, because it also comes across the thing I've wanted to talk about this entire time. So they're attacked by 3 dragons.
Which, by the way, was terrifying, because you think dragons in the sky. And so I'm like, okay, I'm waiting for something to swoop down. No, it drug a pit trap and comes out of the ground for you. And I'm like, no, they're everywhere.
Yeah, they're in the walls. I mean, yeah, they actually were in the walls, but that's not what we're talking about now. 3 big old dragons.
So now you have to worry about the sky, but you also have to worry about the ground. And later there's a pond. Granted, it's an illusion, but they're coming out of the water. Dragons don't even like water.
Yeah, and that's the scary part. But 3 big old dragons come around, and Robert, the dragon expert, does not recognize any of them. And also, they are way, way bigger. So they were hunting something like a lion after dealing with house cats, and these things are dragon-sized.
I mean, yeah, the dragon. But I know what you mean in comparison there, yes. Woolly mammoths.
Yeah. So these things are huge, they're breathing fire, and the caravan is not decimated, it is destroyed.
They are smart, too. They work together.
Which is not something dragons do normally, so says Robert.
Corner them in, and then one of them's even playing with them. Like, they're playing with their food, finding amusement out of it and enjoyment. And Robert's like, well, crap. And Reginald fires Mortmain at this point, and Mortmain isn't important for the rest of the book. What?
And so the main characters, Reginald, Cerise, and Robert, are all huddled together, and folks are dying all around them, and the dragons are coming up, it's about to kill them.
And then Robert's like, stop that. And he's like, I sense them, and I sense all these emotions, and he walks toward them and is wanting them to stop, and then they start attacking each other.
Yeah, alright, this is what I've been wanting to talk about. This made me so angry. Page 129, I have it in front of me.
Oh you know it's good when you have the page number.
Yep. Robert turned his head, threw up in the splintery grass. Then a thing happened. What do you mean, Peter S. Beagle, then a thing happened? What is that sentence? You are a champion of writing. You could make paint drying sound so interesting I would reread it again for the rest of my life. What do you mean, then a thing happened? That is the worst sentence I've ever read in a book by someone I really respect.
And it's never explained either. It's not even like, oh my gosh, my character doesn't understand what's going on. No, it's never explained. We will never know why the three dragons turned on themselves.
I lost so much respect, and I had so much respect.
I want to use that now in all of my books.
And then a thing happened?
Yes, and then a thing happened, and then just go to something else.
I will mark up your Google Docs from top to bottom if you dare make me reread that.
Oh my gosh. And then a thing happened.
It's just Peter S. Beagle, you are amazing. What happened?
A thing.
I have to keep this PG. I can't say what I want to say right now.
That was your -1 star moment.
That was a full star off. That one sentence.
So they attack each other, and then this is the part where, okay, Mortmain does do something after this. Going home, they all have PTSD so hard right now, but going home, Mortmain's like, so, we don't really know what happened, but Reginald could be the reason that they did that. And then Robert's like, oh, and then Reginald comes up crying, upset, mad, and he's like, no, don't you dare, Robert. Robert, you did that. Don't you dare allow him to paint me as the hero. You're the hero. And he rides off. And then Robert just turns to Mortmain and goes, okay, yeah.
Yeah, Robert just ignores him.
He's like, yeah, you can take the credit. That's fine. He just completely ignores that. And so Mortmain goes back and is gonna paint him the hero, even though Karis totally knows what happens, but she's like, I've already done so much buy-in to this dude. I can't not. Sunk cost fallacy gets Karis around this point, but it's okay. They make it back.
And then Robert goes home. This is where Robert learns about the goddess Vardis and how he has a hero's soul and a dragon's heart.
And he's like, no, I refuse. I just want to be a valet. Why? Whatever. So on the way home, going back through the villages, Robert keeps noticing the same man, like an old man, over and over again in each of the villages that looks very angrily at Reginald. He talks to Mortmain about it and is like, hey, did you see him? And Mortmain's like, I mean, maybe. And Robert's like, I think he was a wizard. And Mortmain's like, my man, Creedy killed a wizard with his own staff. And you're gonna be like, oh, maybe I saw a dude. What are you doing?
By the way, did they mention the wizard's name at any point before they see him?
It's a good way in before they name him. And his name is Dar. And he got done dirty.
Yeah, but we'll get to that. The one thing I wanted to mention is a couple pages later, page 139, everybody's in Robert's kitchen and they're saying like, yeah, Robert, you're a hero. And Robert's like, no, I don't want to be a hero. Yeah, you can talk to dragons and you're a dragon slayer. By the way, this entire time, Robert liking and keeping the small dragons is supposed to be a secret. Nobody's supposed to have them.
Yeah, they have a secret hiding place to even put them in.
But when everybody's in Robert's kitchen, the dragons are just out. Ostwald and Elfrida, they see them. They're there. They're in there with them.
And then later on, Ostwald can't sleep, so goes to Robert's house and Robert's mom gives him relationship advice. That was a very weird scene. But yeah, Ostwald's like, I saw something out of the corner of my eye. My man.
Yeah, they're hiding the dragon from him, even when earlier in the book, they clearly see that they have dragons.
Also, you know that Robert took the dragons home because you helped him with the cart anyway.
There's a 0.5. But now he's out of the house, going back. Or he's doing nothing right now.
Reginald is like, I need to be a hero, and he leaves a note, and then he's going to run off. And Karis is so done. One thing maybe gives me that 0.5 back. I love the theme of heroes are idiots that we have to put up with. Because throughout the book, he acts rashly in the name of quote-unquote heroism, but he ends up getting them in worse situations because he does that. This is one of the cases. He just runs off by himself. He's like, I'm going to make myself a hero. I will no longer be a lie. And for some reason, Robert's like, oh, he's after the wizard. I mean, I would have thought he was going after a dragon, but the wizard. So Karis and Robert set off after him, and they're sitting by a pond, and the old man appears on a dragon. It's an illusion.
Yeah, which was also one of the best scenes, is him just rising out of the water.
Oh yeah, it was creepy.
And Robert going like, no, this can't be happening. And it's like, oh yeah, I guess it isn't happening.
But this dude is obsessed with warning his enemies. You could have moved in silence and done everything, but he's like, nah, I'm gonna warn Robert and Karis, and I'm gonna warn Creegee, and I'm gonna like, he warns people.
Yeah, the only thing worse than Robert's PTSD is Dar's ego.
Why? Why did you tell Robert that I'm coming to kill you? You could have just came and killed him. Fine.
He also brags that he's kept Reginald in a tree all night with a bunch of illusions.
Oh yeah, that one's a little funny, yeah.
He actually treat him like he'd hunting a raccoon or something.
He's like, you better go find him. He's running out of fruit. And when you do find him, he's upset about it. He's like, my horse knew. It was an illusion. It was just chomping grass, chill as could be. And I was in the tree wetting myself. And I was like, that was very honest, Reginald. Maybe a little TMI, but okay. Maybe let's clean you up a little bit. It's fine. It's a saying. It's a phrase. He didn't mean it literally. It's fine. Get him back again.
And they figure out that Dar wants revenge
on Creegee because he killed him, but not well enough?
Yeah, they say breaking a wizard's staff is killing them, but he broke the wizard's staff and it didn't kill him, so there you go.
He broke the wizard's staff and then beat him to death with it, and then threw his body to the pigs. But his soul
marches on.
Lived on and carried his body, which once again was thrown to the pigs. I don't know if you know anything about pigs, but they will eat us too, gladly.
Yep.
Carried his body into a cave and restitched his soul and body back together again. I don't know. It's not explained. There's some fantasy things that I get a little bit annoyed with, and I've had this conversation with my husband before, and maybe it's just modern day fantasy readers expect explanations now, because if you look something like The Wizard of Oz, magic happens and nobody asks questions. You know, not everything has to be explained.
And sometimes it's better that it isn't explained because it leaves that element of it's magical in the purest sense.
Yeah, it's mysticism, but this just kind of annoyed me.
Sometimes you want to know. Sometimes you want to know what's going on.
And I was just like, you made the conscious effort to make this book 275 pages, which is very short, especially in modern day landscapes.
Yeah, where books are like 600 pages.
But we're not gonna at least be like, oh, he's undead, because they try to kill him later too. And then he's just like, I'm not dead yet. And then fire happens.
Yeah, this guy dies like 6 times.
And then fire happens, and then they're like, I guess it's good enough. But I'm sitting here like, but is it? Do we need a silver bullet? Do we need a cross? What do we need here?
What are we missing here? But we're going to get back onto it. They book it, the main trio book it straight for the Kingdom of Crovinia and the King Creegee.
Yeah.
By the way, we get a lot of side perceptors. Whatever.
Point of views, yeah.
Yeah, where you have the King and Mortmain and Elfrida and Ostwald.
I think even his mom got one once.
Yeah, and those guys are just kind of there, and they're like, oh yeah, they're all leaving. Huh.
Yeah, they're not even B characters, they're C characters.
Yeah.
This is where the Elfrida happens, where, first of all, she paces around with Mortmain, because she's like, I can't go home. I don't care if my father beats me. I must be here for him. And I'm like, girl, he's getting with a princess. Shut up. Why are both of the girls delusional?
Because this is an 18-year-old...
This is an 18-year-old boy's fanfiction. I know, but...
Well, this is like the bad boy that is so broken up inside and you can totally fix him, and he's good at everything he does.
But I say the the girls are delusional, because those two are, the sisters are, but also the moms are also delusional. Why are all the women delusional here? Karis gets a little bit at the end, but they also kind of like the same character. He specifically goes out of his way to mention 3 different characters they revere royalty just like my mom does. Or, oh, they believe in true love just like my mom does. Or this, that, and the other thing, just like my mom does. I was like, make different characters. Why does he have 4 siblings if they don't even show up?
Yeah, this entire time his brothers are like plowing.
Yeah, every time we see him, it's like, oh, my sisters are here running late for their lessons, but oh, brothers are off doing the business. Why is Robert the only one in the family trade?
Yeah, Robert's digging graves with swords, and his brothers are like, it seems like it'll rain tomorrow, don't you think? Yeah, it's good we planted the wheat early.
Why? It's almost Jane Austen-esque with the siblings, where it's like, here are all your siblings. Anyway, here are the 2 important ones.
Yeah, and why didn't the mom pray for Vardis to bless the other 2 guys?
Forget them.
Imagine how that conversation goes down.
No, forget them. No one cares about them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, the only thing I have about any of the siblings is that they're Robert's sibling.
Yeah, that's their character.
They don't get any sort of, this is what they look like, or this is how they act. The sisters act exactly like each other, and the brothers act exactly like each other. Why do we have so many characters if we just don't care about them?
Yep, and this is something that I wanted to talk about, is the Elfrida and Ostwald. I actually liked Elfrida as a character. She may not have much to her, but the whole thing was that she was head over heels, girl next door in love with Robert. And that is basically the sum of her character. But the fact that she was willing to go so far, to be that, I don't know if selfless would be the right word.
The word is delusion.
Yep. But she was passionate.
I have to go. He needs me. He can't do this without me. I know in my heart I must be there for him.
And she doesn't know about the princess. She doesn't know what's been going on this whole time. All she knows is that she is in love with Robert, and Robert, being a guy from her village, and nobody ever leaves, like, you know, the 15-mile radius of their village back in those days, she has a pretty good shot. And then there's Ostwald. And I missed the Ostwald that was in the first few chapters.
Yeah, the one that was like, I can fall asleep anywhere and serves as a good foil for Robert.
Yeah, he was calm, he was patient, he was the backbone. And then for so much of the book, he just spends it complaining.
Pining after.
Yeah, just pining after Elfrida.
It's a very annoying love triangle. As someone who adores love triangles, I didn't like it because it was really obvious who was going to end up with who. And at this point, like I said, we get several parts of chapters where they're just arguing, and then it skips to the last chapter where, oh, they're holding hands and they hang out now. What? You do all of this buildup of this love triangle and then you're just going to skip all of it?
Yeah, and the whole lead up where Elfrida buys the mule and they argue about whether or not it's a donkey, and all Ostwald does is basically say like, yeah, I'm useless and you hate me, I'm such a pitiable character, and Elfrida's like, no you're not, and then they fall in love, and I'm like, wait a minute, no, wait a minute.
What happened? We don't even get to see them finding them and helping them home. Robert just mentions, hey, thanks for doing that thing.
It's not even a post-credit scene.
Yeah, Robert collapses and then he's at home.
It's just such a poorly done tie up loose ends kind of deal.
This is only 275 pages. We can't have this much and this little at the same time.
Yeah, and that was in my review, my silly little Goodreads review, is that you should have either just ditched the characters or given them more. Because I would have been happier if Ostwald and Elfrida didn't have the closed loop. I would have been happier if Elfrida did find out the hard way.
Or skip the whatever the heck the donkey thing was and just leave it up. Don't mention it. Don't have a kind of a hint of they bicker back and forth for 2 days. They're in love.
Yeah, it's just unnecessary. And that is in the midst of what we are doing with the actual people that matter.
The trio goes to the capital of Reginald's because they're like, oh no, he's going for the king. And once again, Reginald sneaks off without him. That's when he leaves the note with his horrible spelling and is like, I'll go be a hero. And Karis is so freaking done with this man and his nonsense. She's like, he's stupid. I hate it. Heroes are dumb. I don't like them. Good for you. Have some standards. Besides, he's hot. Which, speaking of, I kind of hate how he piecemeal gives you what they look like, because it's not some basic things about him. And then later on, I'll mention, oh, his eye color. No, it's not till halfway through the book that he mentions that Reginald has a mustache. The only reason we learn he has a mustache is because of the dragon thing, and half of it gets burned off.
Yeah, and I don't know about the rest of his hair, because apparently half of his hair got burned off too, right?
Yeah, so we got that he was tall and handsome, and then later on, we get that he has blonde hair and blue eyes. It's like, okay, let me just readjust my mental thing real quick. And then he has a mustache!
Yeah.
No, I have to completely change what this dude looks like. He now looks much older.
Yeah, just picture a blondish Henry Cavill around 20 years old, but also give him severe third-degree burns.
And half a mustache.
So they go to the Capitol, and his dad is waiting for him.
His dad is on the parapet because what's-his-face warned him to, which they mention having purple guard dogs that sleep in his bed, but apparently the guard dogs don't join them when the dragons are attacking.
You're right.
They're inside guard dogs.
You're right, they just kind of mentioned them. I guess they really are just his blankets.
Literally, because I was like, I would have purple guard dogs if I could have purple guard dogs, and then never again.
Yeah, I think they even mentioned that he doesn't sleep in blankets, he just sleeps with the dogs.
All of them, which are very warm. Dogs are very warm, but they are very wiggly.
It's a 3-dog night. You've heard the expression.
They are very wiggly. And if they're big dogs, then small wiggles are big.
But dragons and wizards...
Dar's like, ha 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 ha, I have dragons now, you suck. Anyway, let me turn you into a chair.
This is the weirdest scene in the whole book. He just summons dragons. And by the way, there's a very touching scene where Reginald, who had been captured by Dar and then given back, I guess just because...
Yeah.
And then both Reginald and Creegee try to one-up each other in trying to die.
Yes.
It goes from being kind of touching to being almost like a Monty Python skit where they're just both pushing each other aside in order to be the one to commit suicide.
Yes. You said touching. I don't know how touching I found that scene. It just felt like egotism and no, I actually do like my brother. Or my son. And it's like, okay, I wish you had figured that out before you got turned into a sentient chair. Literally gets turned to gold. He's a gold statue. Then he has 6 dragons melt him down, and then the dragons reshape him into a... That's not how that works. This isn't a 3D printer. We don't start from a puddle and move up.
I get creeped out by it because this entire time, remember audience, Dar proclaims
that he is sentient and he is conscious.
He is sentient this entire time.
He doesn't say that he feels pain.
That doesn't matter. If you are changed into something else and you retain all of your intellectual abilities, that freaks me out. It freaks me right out, man. That's up there for me. But thankfully, that's only brought up at least 10 more times.
Yeah, and so he's like, haha, I now control things here. You guys should stay for dinner.
And they do.
And then they're about to leave. They're like, so this has been fun. You totally didn't try to poison us, which we're a little bit surprised about, but we're gonna go. And then he's like, you guys can go, but I'm keeping Robert. And Karis is like, no. And he's like, yeah. And then Robert goes, no. And then they leave. And then a king chases after them.
A king dragon.
Which is the biggest of the bigs. We've been progressively getting bigger.
Yep, we've had house cats, we've had mountain lions.
Woolly mammoths, and now we have whatever the heck this is. A dinosaur.
Yeah, imagine a T-Rex. This is the dragon you think about when you think of dragons.
They're like bees. How do their wings do it?
Yep, it can fit an entire person in its mouth, standing up.
Easily.
And so then it just gets weirder from this point on.
Yeah. I'm just going to skip most of it because it's actually a pretty good action scene. I really enjoyed it, but summarizing it makes it sound bad. Robert, once again, pulls the I feel what you're feeling and I can hear your thoughts and hey, what do you want from me? And then it starts to attack itself again.
Heart of the dragons, said Okaiba.
He goes into its shadow and morphs with the dragon, which pushes Dar out of the dragon. And then Dars has a several page info dump where he brags about how he's the only one that can merge with the dragon, even though Robert just did it to knock you out.
And by the way, the whole punchline to this whole thing is Dara's bragging about how he merged with the king dragon, and he and the dragon are one and the same. And then Robert just comes out of the dragon and is like, yeah, no, we're kind of parasites to them when we try to do that.
We are literally fleas. We are there because he is being nice.
Yeah, the king dragon's nonplussed by any of this. He did it all on like a lark.
Yeah, he was like, that sounds like fun. So why did those other dragons kill each other? Because no one was merged with them.
I think only the king dragon has that ability where it's kind of like, yeah, whatever. Because somebody trying to control a king dragon is like a 1-year-old trying to put a collar on a Great Dane.
But here's the thing that gets me. They try to kill him. He is undead. He is like, ha 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 ha, I am still not dead.
Reginald has his heroic moment. He finally proves to everyone that he is a hero.
It's not even that heroic. He's about to do it and it doesn't work. And so he just throws the sword as a last-ditch effort and it ends up impaling him.
And by the way, Reginald had several attempted heroics.
And every time it made it worse.
Like, he attempted to stand in front of the dragon and failed several times.
So that happens and they're like, well, I guess we should bury him, except he's not dead. And he gets up. But here's the thing that gets me. This whole book, they're like, you don't breed dragons, you create dragons, right? Right?
Right.
And he threatens to turn them into dragons, right?
Yep.
Then who the heck were all those other dragons?
Yeah. He has an army of dragons.
Do they get turned into humans now that Dar's dead? Or are they just dragons forever? Is that why they killed themselves? It's because they became sentient enough to be like, oh my gosh, we're not humans anymore. But the king is still real. Like, he was asleep in a cave, but he's real. But the other ones, he says he created them, but then Robert's like, no, he didn't. You can't create dragons, but he threatens to turn them into dragons.
There's a lot of Deus Ex Dracula happening.
And he gets turned to ash, and then we just cut to the last chapter.
Yeah, the king dragon just kind of turns. Robert gets out of the way, and he's like, okay, yeah, we're parasites. And then the king dragon burns Dar.
He's like, you know what sounds funny? Because it's like, oh yeah, the king doesn't care about us. We're whatever. He'll only do whatever the heck he wants. And then he just rises into the air and burns this very specific man to a crisp.
Because he can.
Because he so doesn't care. He has no dog in the fight, except he's gonna do a bunch of really convenient things for our heroes. Anyway, he has nightmares now, and he's hiding from all of his friends.
Yeah, we were joking about PTSD earlier. No.
But no, it wasn't a joke. I was serious. They all have PTSD.
Yeah, they actually do.
They all have nightmares.
Yeah, like there's a scene where Robert's just in his bed and he cries and he shakes and it's real.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I sleep in my brother's beds now because I'm so upset. It keeps them awake up all night, but they understand that heroes have trauma, basically. I don't remember the exact wordage, but it's like, oh yeah, heroes have trauma. It's like, yeah, that's called PTSD.
Yeah, it really is like a deconstruction of so much of the Dragon Tamer, Dragon Slayer genre.
So he's gonna leave? I don't know. They keep implying that he's not going to be there for much longer. And the mom's like, I'm okay with you not talking to Oswald or his girlfriend or the prince or this other person, but how dare you not talk to Karis? I ship it, son. I ship it.
You mentioned that the mom is a big Royals fan. She would have jumped on board with that whole British craze that went on in the 2010s.
Oh yeah, she's watching every royal wedding.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so she wants little Robert and little Cerise prince and princelings.
So bad. So he goes to find where Karis, and his heart, he just knows where her secret spot is. And then Reginald's there, and I was like, that was good. I like that. He shows up, he's like, oh, in my heart. And it's in italics. It's a paragraph taken from the beginning of the book when Karis goes there for the first time. So it's like, it's perfect. And then Reginald's there. And yeah, that's where he's like, we could turn my dad back into a human, or I could go get drunk.
I'm gonna go get drunk. Yeah.
That sounds good. I'm gonna go get drunk and I'm gonna stay away from Mortmain. And Robert's like, maybe Mortmain should be the ruler while you're away. And Reginald was like, maybe. And then Karis shows up.
But then Reginald exits stage left.
Yeah. Karis kisses him on the cheek and then on the lips. And then takes Robert's arm and she's like, I just wanted to know what that felt like, you know? And he's like, no, I don't. But we're just gonna keep going. And so she's like, you should come meet my mom. And he's like, no. And she's like, cool. You you should come meet my mom. And they start walking to his mom and they run into Mortmain and they're like, hey. And he's like, hey, have you seen Reginald? And they're like, nope. And then they walk off together. And I'm like, I guess Mortmain's not going to be the king.
Oh, man.
And that's where it ends, with him being like, oh no, I'm doomed. Which I'm like, ugh, gross. Don't ball and chain nonsense this is. Karis is a catch at the end of it. She's heroic. She does a bunch of cool things. She's a hero in her own right.
Yeah, we kind of skipped over this towards the latter half of the book, but Cerise really grows as a character.
By the end of it, she's pretty cool, which makes up for the beginning a little bit, not really. But yeah, she is the only one that really has character development. Because Reginald still wants to be a hero-ish. Mortmain still wants to be his valet and whatever. Robert's still the reluctant hero.
Robert gets PTSD and a girlfriend, and that's what his character is.
Yeah, which hooray.
A lot of guys would still accept the deal.
Woo. She's hot and teaching herself to read. That's pretty cool. So yeah, general thoughts. There's too many characters for this short a book. And he tries to give them enough time, but it honestly ends up just kind of annoying me because you're taking away from the trio to do the stupid donkey thing again, and then you just drop subplots. And then we don't even get to see Oswald and his girlfriend falling in love, and we don't even get to see Karis introducing him to her mom and dad. That's drama. How are they going to do that? I mean, it's a hero, so it works out, but it's just, we don't even get to see princes be like, oh no, it's not even a prince, you know? I don't know. It was just like a punch in, get out. And I have so many questions.
Oh, man.
And I feel like I went on several, her sisters are rich, right? Rants during this, but kind of deserves it. Because what the heck? You can't just say witty things and then not have your world back it up. This isn't a butterfly talking about hand to hand to hand to hand to hand to hand combat, okay? Ugh. This is an education system, alas.
I am so glad we got to talk about this book.
I read the book. I need to rant about the book to somebody who will get it. Welcome. One question for the author. Why so short? I'm just stuck on that. It's not a short story, literally. It is not a novella. I would not argue this is a novella. Why so short? It felt like a children's novel, but I feel like The Last Unicorn is also kind of short, but it had so much more in it because it focused on such a small group of characters and then took them place to place to place. And it's like, okay, we get a lowdown of a place, but then we keep moving and it's still our core characters. Granted, I did have some issues where it's like, I hate the prince. He's murdering a bunch of creatures. Anyway, I'm so in love with him. Also did that. Maybe romance just isn't his strong suit, but why so short?
My question is something I want to ask a lot of authors, but him in particular. How do you go through the names? What is your naming thing, or not, I don't want to use the word thing anymore. What is your naming process? How do you decide what countries are named? How do you decide how people are named?
Where is this place also? Because like I said, it mentions German words, but also sometimes French. And I'm like, so you're in Europe? Germanic area, maybe?
Yeah, it's vague Europe. Like I said, he just overlays his fantasy world on top of things. But I really want to know how he picks names.
Some of them are Robert, and then some of them are Oswald. Some of them are Lucas, and then some of them are Kriegi.
Yep. And then you have Hannibal, and Jaeger, and Bernard, and Gerhard.
And Hans.
Fernand.
And you have like Walter and Jared, but then you have Elfrida.
Yeah, I just want to know. That would be my question. How do you get the etymology down? Do you stick to any certain country for certain people? Do you have a system, or is it just whatever pops into your head?
Both. Maybe. I don't know.
He has a dartboard with a bunch of names on it.
That would be great. Rating. I would give this Seeing a Dragon in the Distance out of 10. It's really cool and exciting. It's like, oh my gosh, there's a dragon so far away. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I'm a little disappointed, actually. Goodbye.
A Komodo dragon eating a capybara out of 10.
No! They love each other.
That's just it, where it's kind of like, wow, this is going to be something to see. And then I don't really know if I want to see that either way. It's a weird book. I gave it a 3.5 out of 10 on Goodreads because it still has good parts to it. And it's a worthwhile read if you really want to read it. And you mentioned it being short. That's true. I feel like it could be expanded. He gives the names of dragons. He gives so much of the system. If he just hashed this out, it could be something. It could be another, like I said, How to Train Your Dragon or Aragorn or something like that.
Because there is a huge market for dragon lovers. There are so many series that are just dragons.
Yep, and he could keep on deconstructing it. He could deconstruct it until there's nothing left, but it could be expanded.
And we need to know why the king has a library when he can't read. I'm just...
I laughed so hard when you mentioned that. Oh my goodness.
Read again, maybe? I don't know. I like where we get to about halfway with the characters, but then I have to put up with the first half. And I don't really think I'm going to learn terribly much more by rereading this. Maybe.
There's not much hidden meaning in this.
Yeah, because there's not enough information for me to study the dragons, but it's not so poetic or vague that I could imagine my own dragon world either by rereading it. It's kind of like in that middle place where it's like enough information to be solid, but not enough to be interesting.
Enough for a boat, not enough for a sail.
Yeah.
I would not. And if I was forced to, I would read until page 129 and then accept my inevitable death.
You could just skip the page.
No, it's important because that's where the thing happens.
Very, very important thing.
Peter S. Beagle, if your 85-year-old self stumbles across this review, please know I still love you. I still love your books. You're a fantastic writer. I'm reading the Overneath right now. That page.
Well, what was this?
What was this? I love you, Peter S. Beagle, and that's why I'm upset with you. Because I know you can do better.
I love you enough to be disappointed. I care. Oh, goodness. But have you read this book? Dragons or unicorns? Do you have any book recommendations for us? Tell us all about it in the comments below. If you liked the video, hit like, and if you're enjoying yourself, hit subscribe for more. Thank you for exploring I'm Afraid You Got Dragons with us. Maybe that should have been my rating. I'm Afraid You Got Dragons out of 10. I'm Sam Reiner.
And I'm Tim Bergman.
And we hope to see you and a friend here next time. Escape With Me Book Club is a Lunar Skulk production. Check us out on TikTok or Instagram to keep up to date with us. Lunar_SKULK.